obsessing about relationships is definitely a thing in the fearful avoidant attachment style, and it just helps to understand a little bit more about why we do that, why we obsess. So let's dive in. The first one is simply you obsess because you don't know whether you're doing it right or how to really do it right. A lot of fearful avoidants have experienced pressure to socially perform when they were younger, so they had to perform in social situations in a way that would be comfortable for the fearful avoidant parent, so that the fearful avoidant parent wouldn't be judged for their parenting skills. Your parent wasn't aware of this, probably, and definitely not aware of the impact that this may have. Because if you have experienced that a parent was very on top of your social interactions, that can put a lot of pressure, and you just kind of not knowing what to do or how to do it right. The other side is that fearful avoidant parents usually are not the best example of how to have relationships, and they are your role models. They are the ones that you model relationships after. So whether that's friendships, whether that's love relationship, romantic relationships, your fearful avoidant parent may have been charming and intriguing and interesting, but not necessarily good at really connecting with other people. And so this may lead to you feeling like you don't really know what to do or how to do this thing called relationships. When it comes to romantic relationships, the example that you've had from your parents probably also wasn't the best. If at least one of your parents was a fearful avoidant, which is likely when you have the fearful avoidant attachment style. So it's just a matter of really not knowing what it looks like, not really knowing what the characteristics of a healthy relationship are. And when you don't really know that, and you're afraid of making mistakes, then you start obsessing. You start obsessing because you have to get it right, and everything has to be perfect. Because you're just kind of unsure about what you're doing or what you're supposed to be doing and what it's supposed to feel like and what you're supposed to do, or how you're supposed to be in a relationship. It's just very confusing, and that insecurity does not help the obsession. It feeds into the obsession. The second reason why we obsess over relationships and we keep going for relationships, starting relationship, is because we long for it so deeply. A lot of fearful avoidants have experienced some type of deep connection or love at some point with their parent when they were younger. It's the fact that it was there and then got taken away, the push and the pull and the highs and the lows. That's what is so confusing, and that's what creates such different behavior than people who have had a dismissive childhood, a dismissive parent who never really had that deep connection with them. They were mostly just more distant and more focused on performance and achieving. Children of fearful avoidant parents, fearful avoidance, tend to have experienced in childhood moments of deep connection or love with that fearful avoidant parent, even if it was very small or very brief. So you kind of know what connection feels like, where maybe somebody who is a dismissive avoidant doesn't even really know what that feels like because they've never really experienced it. You know it, probably. You've probably felt it. It was just there were so many layers of fear around it and of negative beliefs, and maybe your parent pulled back immediately after a vulnerable moment and lashed out at you. So there's just a lot of associations, but that feeling of connection is what you do long for so deeply, because you know it is there and you may have experienced it, however briefly. The third one is because you want to prevent abandonment and rejection at all costs. The fearful avoidant gets usually experienced abandonment and rejection in the harshest ways when they were younger. So where, again, dismissives tend to be a little bit more just distant. This is all very generalizing, obviously. A little bit more distant and just kind of consistent in that. In the fearful avoidant dynamic, there is a lot of just pushing and pulling. So there's moments that are beautiful and then pushing away really hard. So that rejection is very obvious and very blatant. And I think the fearful avoidant attachment style may be the only attachment style that has experienced abandonment and rejection that harshly, and that concretely. Like, it really happened in certain moments, where for the dismissive avoidance it was more like a constant not really engaging or not really connecting, if that makes sense. So what a fearful avoidant is trying to do at all costs is avoid that abandonment and rejection that hurt so much when they were younger, and they try to do that by being perfect, and therefore obsessing over relationships and doing it perfectly and wanting their partner to be perfect and wanting the relationship to be perfect, so they never have to deal with the pain of abandonment or rejection ever again. Then the fourth one is because you are not allowed to hurt others or do it wrong. Coming back to the socially performing part, you probably learned as a child that you were not allowed to hurt others. And of course, children have to be guided, but all children hurt other children. That's just a phase that you have to go through and that you need guidance in, not correction, not punishment, just guidance. And for a lot of fearful avoidance, that was punishment for sure. When you would hurt somebody else, your fearful avoidant parent would become angry. And it's so interesting. I remember that when I was healing this, I realized that my parent was punishing me for being impulsive and hitting another child when I was 2 or 3, like really young. And I know this because of, this is a longer story, but because of my father keeping a diary. And then when I was 18, he copied his diary, all the parts that were about me. He copied that and gave that to me, which is why I know where a lot of these things come from, because I've read it from his perspective, him being a fearful avoidant. I could make a whole video on that some other time, but very interesting. So what I read one point is that I had hit another child and he got mad at that, physically grabbed me and brought me to the hallway for kind of like a timeout or whatever you would call it. We don't call it timeout in the Netherlands. It's just punishment. You just stand in the hallway. And the fact that he didn't see that I had impulses that I couldn't control, just like he had impulses he couldn't control. So he was punishing me for something that he actually did too. It's just so interesting to me. And this is not to blame him or to, put him on the spot or whatever. It's just, it's so interesting how sometimes you're so blind to your own behaviors when you're trying to control a child. Because that's what a fearful avoidant parent does, trying to control their children. So you are not allowed to hurt others or do it wrong in social situations, because otherwise you will be punished, and sometimes that will be physical and that will be very threatening. So that makes you scared of doing anything wrong and possibly hurting somebody. And then the fifth reason why you obsess over relationships is because you want to be perfect at it. A lot of fearful avoidants have a tendency towards perfectionism. I talk about this a lot in the videos. And being perfect at relationships is impossible. I mean, we all will make mistakes. We all have to learn and grow as a person and get to know that other person, because every person is different. But the interesting thing is trying to be perfect kind of immediately equally causes you to not really be able to connect with another person, because trying to be perfect and connection cannot really exist at the same time. So that's what makes that hard. You can't really be be perfect and then really connect. And the connection part is what we really want. We really want to connect deeply. So, yeah, these are 5 reasons why you obsess over relationships. And there are probably more. If you have another insight, please share with us in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And I hope this helped. I hope this was valuable, and now you understand why relationships are this big thing in your life and why you obsess about it so much. It all makes sense. You make sense. It is all logical. You are not broken. You are not behind either. If you have all these things and you're like, oh, I just don't know how relationships work, when you've healed, when you're healing already, you will notice that relationships come just so much more naturally. We are wired for connection, and that is something you will never lose. That is not something that can go away or can be broken. There's a lot of negative associations that can be around that, but that's what you can heal. That's what you can release. But that being wired for connection and connecting with other people, that's in you. That's in you, and that will never be taken away, whatever happens. So the more you heal, the more that just comes naturally, and the more you can enjoy that. And that is what I wish for you. As always, I am so happy you are here, and I will see you in the next one.
Healed and Happy is a tailor made online program where me and my team personally guide you through healing the roots of a fearful avoidant attachment style.